Hello, everyone. This is Criminal Profiler Pat Brown, and this is Dear Profiler Pat, where you send me your questions and ask for some advice, and I give you some, and I always hope that it helps. And I always hope that it helps the viewers as well. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe, and check the playlist for the different areas of life you might want some advice in. And if you want to ask me a question, send me an email to profilerpatbrown@gmail.com and put in the subject line, Dear Profiler Pat, so I find it. Okay, this question. Dear Profiler Pat, should I dump my friend after a horrible vacation experience? I so can relate to this because I actually ended up dumping two people after a horrible vacation experience. So, the two ways you learn about people is by going on a vacation with them and by sharing an apartment or a room, become roommates. Those two things can kill a friendship quicker than anything I know because that's where sometimes the true nature of the person comes out. This person says this, Dear Profiler Pat, I'm a huge fan of your channel. Oh, that's very nice. Perhaps you can address this dilemma. Oh, I can. I've been there, done that. And hopefully I'm not overly biased, but this is where I like your comments coming in because you might have a different viewpoint on this, and that's okay. We recently took a family cruise for my father's birthday. There were 10 of us. I decided to invite my best friend, who also loves cruising. We've done cruises together in the past and always had a great time until now. The trip started nice, but as the days went on, he became progressively drunker and drunker. We all had the drink package and we were enjoying our cocktails responsibly. He was getting plastered and making a fool of himself. I took him to the side and told him he has to control himself, especially around my family. He knew going in that this would be a family trip, not a booze cruise. Obviously, that didn't work. And there's your first kind of red flag. When you took him aside and you talked to him and you said, "Look, this is not okay," and he didn't care. He knew what it was. He knew what it was going in, and apparently that didn't matter to him. He was going to do what he wanted to do, even if it humiliated you and was upsetting to everybody else. He was simply going to do what he wanted to do. That is disrespectful, and that is abuse. All right, all of our staterooms were on the same corridor, lined up next to each other. One evening around midnight, he started banging on my parents' stateroom door and screaming on the top of his lungs. He was so loud it woke me up 5 doors down. I'm sure he woke up the entire hallway. It was a miracle security wasn't called. When my parents opened the door, he barged in and started screaming and rambling on in a drunken nonsense. My parents were mortified and terrified. I had to intervene, half naked in my robe, to calm him down. I was seriously scared for our safety. I've never seen him act like that, even on our own cruises, where he's been drinking a lot. He stormed off, and we didn't see him for 2 full days. Now, two things here. One is his behavior was beyond anything you expected, and was bizarre. So that you have to look at what the heck could cause that kind of level of odd behavior. Because even people who are drunk don't do things like that normally. They just get drunk. Some of them are happy drunks, some of them, melancholy drunks, some are stupid drunks. But this is kind of excessive. And then he storms off for 2 days. Now, at some point, you think he'd be sober enough to realize, oh my God, what have I done? But apparently, he didn't come back and say, this was a problem. Fast forward to the end of the trip, he, quote, mostly settled down and wasn't as inebriated. The trip ended without incident. Well, the incident that it ended without was him apologizing to you and your family for his horrifying behavior. I feel so terribly sorry for inviting him and basically ruining my dad's birthday cruise. Well, those things do happen. You just didn't see it coming. And at least you feel bad about it. He doesn't seem to feel bad about what he did. It was our family's first vacation in 10 years, and this guy was acting like a drunken fool. I am terribly embarrassed and have even to have ever called him my friend. Am I overreacting by not wanting to be friends with him anymore? Surely this will be the last vacation we do together. What would you do? Okay. So the question comes down to, do you disown him as a friend or you disown him as a vacationer? And that's the question. And I'm gonna give you two experiences that I had, because what happened to me was shocking. The first experience, I didn't know this woman really well. We had met on a walking group, and she had invited me to her house, and we'd had She made dinner before. She had a lovely home. She was friendly. But I always noticed she was very much, she and her husband were all about what they were about. And I was just there to, like, basically be impressed by them. I did notice the narcissism. When we went on walks with her dog, I did notice that she was very aggressive toward other people and bullying. She had a bullying thing she was doing. But it's one of those things you see it in little pieces. And so you're like, okay, well, I don't want to be too critical. Well, she said to me one day, hey, I'm going to be coming through Paris. And I'm going to be by myself in Paris. I'm meeting my husband someplace. I'm going to be in Paris. Would you like to join me in Paris? And for a week, and we'll spend, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And so she told me what the hotel was planned, and she has a lovely hotel. I'm like, okay. And then I bought the ticket to go to Paris. And then she told me, oh, and by the way, I don't share rooms. Could you have told me that before I paid for the ticket? Because now I have to get an entirely separate room, which doubles my cost for the week, which I did. Then she asked me to bring things to her in Paris. I had to carry things from her house to Paris. Okay. So I brought an extra suitcase for that. Get to Paris. Now I'm paying this extra money. First day we go out. We're walking around Paris. This is like in the morning. We haven't even spent any time together. We're just in the morning. And she didn't know where something was. So she went up to some lady and she said, do you know where this is? In English. And the woman responded back in total English because she was an American and said, I have no clue. And I just kind of giggled and I said, well, she doesn't look very Parisian considering she's very overweight and kind of frumpy. And I'm like, it doesn't look very Parisian to me. It was just a joke. And she goes, how dare you insult me like that? And I'm like, what? She goes, do you think that blah, blah, blah? And she just went off on this. And then she said, I'm done with you. She walked away and left me. We had a whole day planned together. She just walked away. And I'm like, so I spent the day by myself. And then later on, I come back to the hotel and she's like, well, you didn't answer my text. I'm like, well, because you walked away. And then she stole my luggage. I'm not kidding. She stole my luggage. The luggage I brought her stuff in, she refused to give back to me. And so we spent the week apart. I had a great time in Paris by myself, but she stole my luggage. And I'm like, who does that? So I had to go out. So it was bizarre. Was I friends with her when we came home? No. Okay, so she wasn't a great friend, so it was like I could just toss her away. However, I had another friend, and I've known her for 20 years, and I've always found her a little bit on the narcissistic-y, selfish side. I know that, but generally speaking, she's very nice to me and all that. We've traveled many times together, many times, to different countries, and I've always noticed that I always had to make sure she was happy. She never was all that concerned if I was happy, but I had to make sure she was happy. So if I said she loves like trees and botanical gardens, so I go, I found a botanical garden for us to go to. She'd go, oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Pat. And we would go there. Then I'd say, oh, there's this little boat that goes out. We see the birds. And she goes, I don't like birds. I'm like, but I like birds. I want to see the birds. She could care less. So anything she wanted to do, I was supposed to be enthusiastic about, but if anything I wanted to do that she wasn't interested in, she just, and she had these moments during our trips which were uncomfortable, but I kind of just tossed them off as that's who she is. But the last trip we took together, she started bullying me from the very time we landed. Now, mind you, I had planned the entire trip. I found the Airbnbs. I got our tickets for us. I got the rental car. I was going to do the driving because she can't drive the kind of car, and I'm a good driver. And she's so I had planned all these activities. I had planned the entire thing because I'm a good vacation planner, and she always relied on me to do that. As we started, came out of the airport. She started bullying me about not listening to her. Like she was like, "Oh, take a right here." Well, I can't take a right there because there's a cement barrier, So I'm like, I can't do that. Driving in San Juan, Puerto Rico area is really tough. They have very bad signage and it's really weird roads. People drive fine, but the roads are really weird. And so I'm trying to drive and not kill us. And she's getting mad because I won't follow her last minute advice of where to turn. And I said, look, I can't see it in time and I can't make these turns. She says, you just don't listen to me. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And there was this moment where we were driving along and she says, oh, look, there's a Sam's Club or something like that. And I looked over and said, oh, where? And she goes, you never believe me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, I just couldn't see it. I mean, where? I was just asking where it was. And then we were in our little a little rental house. And one of the things I told her was I was going to do my shows from down there, my YouTube shows. And I had to do just two of the week, two during the week. And as I was trying to set up, and it was very difficult because, of course, I'm using everything is different. I'm not at home. I don't have my studio area. And so I'm trying to set up lights that are trying to work. I'm trying to hang up a green screen that's falling off the door. I mean, it was a mess. And so I'm like, I'm trying to, the time is ticking down. And she sees me frantically doing this. And she says, I'll make dinner if you'll cut up the onions and the green peppers, and then I'll do the rest. And I'm down to the wire here. I don't have time to do onions and green peppers. And then she said, how dare you talk to me like that? And I'm like, she says, you talking to me like that, that will never be, that's abusive and you should never say those things to me. And I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, I planned the whole trip. I've done all the driving, and why did you need me to cut up onions and peppers? Why did you just make dinner? I mean, you see me trying to get ready for my show. What the heck? And she was like that. Then the next day she says, oh, I have a friend coming in. I'm going to leave tomorrow. She did pay. I said, well, no, she didn't rip me off on that. She just said, I'll pay for the rest of it, but drive me to the airport tomorrow. So she dumped me in the middle of the trip, went home. And she stole something from the location. And she's a professional woman. There's no reason for her to steal. Did she do it on purpose? I don't know. I called up the guy and I said, look, this item is missing. I'm happy to pay for it. I mean, because it's not here. It's clear it was stolen. And that was that. And she contacted me I think during Easter, and she said, happy Easter. And I did not respond. And I haven't spoken to her in 2 years. Should I have ditched this friendship? Well, this is where you are, I think, with this guy. You're wondering why a person who you've been a friend with, and I'm going to say you probably saw inklings of his behavior prior to the cruise, but you probably, as most of us do, say that's just the way he is. You accepted a level of abuse, a level of narcissism, a level of bullying, whatever he's ever done to you, because you saw other qualities in them. You thought, well, maybe that's worth keeping a friend for. And I always did with this particular woman. And yet I had noticed all these things before. And I put up with a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have put up with. But I did because I didn't want to lose her friendship. And in this trip, her abusive behavior was just ridiculous. I probably underplayed this for you because that's a short thing. I can't even explain how bad it was on a daily and hourly basis for like about 10 days straight. And I'm like, what's wrong with her? Now, I thought perhaps she's going through a bad relationship in her marriage. She's thinking of divorce, and her mind is gone. Maybe she's suffering from early Alzheimer's. She's in her 60s. I'm thinking of all kinds of possibilities. But the simple fact is, she was highly abusive toward me. And like you said, you're not going to go on another vacation with him. Absolutely not. I would never, ever risk another vacation with her because of the way she treated me, ruined my vacation, dumped me. I mean, the whole thing was really bad. And the other woman, when I say, that was a very quick thing. She was never a good friend or anything. That was easier, but it's like, whoa, she's a psycho. But this woman, I'd known for 20 years. And it was very hard to let the relationship go. But I also do not accept being abused. The way I was treated was so horrific, over and over, day after day. And I kept going, what is going on? And if she had contacted me and said, look, I apologize for what I did during that trip. I don't know, whatever she wanted to say. I was losing my mind. I have this issue. And I really apologize. I know I made you miserable. I was bullying you and I was terrible. And I shouldn't have done anything as I did. I don't want to lose your friendship. I would have said, okay. I would have continued my friendship. I would have tried to see. I'd be a little shaky about the vacations until I knew she was maybe back in a healthier state, I would never have dumped her. But the fact that she pretended it never happened and, hi, happy Easter. It's like, no apologies, nothing after what you did. And I'm going to guess is because she thinks she's right. She thinks I was the problem on the trip because she considers me abusive toward her because I said, hey, because I wouldn't listen to her when I was driving, or because I said, hey, I'm in the middle of trying to get my show together. I don't have time to do this. She thought that was abusive. I don't know what's going on in her brain. And sometimes you'll have friends who you're like, what the heck? It doesn't make sense. But if they're not willing to recognize what's going on and to come back to you and say, hey, I was out of line. I lost my mind for some reason. I don't know why your friend went to a level, call it overboard, which you might have wished he had been, but he went beyond just drinking. He was abusive toward you, your parents, everybody on the ship. He was horrible. Simply fact, he was horrible, and yet takes no responsibility for it. My friend wasn't nice to me, and I consider it pretty horrible. Not quite the level of your friend, I must admit, but I figured it. I thought it was quite horrible, and yet she's never apologized. She's never come back and said what caused. If there was some weird thing that caused it, a brain tumor or something, I wouldn't throw away my friendship. So if your friend ever comes back and ever explains what the heck he did, I say give him a break, but be cautious. But the fact is, I'm thinking he has never come back to you and apologized for anything, even though he destroyed your vacation and your parents' vacation. He doesn't take any responsibility. And that's a friend I'm going to say you don't need in your life. And that's why I decided I'm going to have to let both of these ladies go. And, the door's open. And one day, if you ever come back and say, hey, I don't know why I did what I did, or I do know why I did what I did, and I'm really sorry about it, my door is always open. I forgive people if they're willing to come clean on things. But if they think they can just abuse the hell out of me, treat me like dirt, and just pretend it never happened, I'm sorry. I got a little more, pride, I guess, than to be treated like that. And I don't think it's acceptable for anybody to be treated that way. So, yeah, I would say, yes, no more vacations with the guy. And if he doesn't ever apologize, take responsibility, and explain anything, he's probably not a friend. And there's something wrong with that guy to begin with, And I think probably, like I saw in both of these women, issues, but I downplayed them because you want to give people a break. Everybody's not perfect. I'm not perfect. But that's a problem. And I have a dear lifelong friend I've had for so many years, and I can tell you, never, never has she ever mistreated me, because that's the way it should be. So those are my thoughts on that. If you've got comments, put all your comments below, because I think it's a really interesting topic. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced these rifts with friends, or what used to be friends. So I'm looking forward to your comments. Again, if you're new to the channel, like and subscribe. Check the playlist. I'll see you next time.